All right, so have you ever been scrolling online and you see like one book just everywhere?
Oh, yeah.
You can't escape it. And it feels like for a lot of people lately, that book has been A Court of Thorns and Roses.
I feel like, yeah, it's got that vibe, right?
It's got a huge vibe.
Yeah.
It's by Sarah J Maas. Maybe you've seen the covers. They're really like pretty striking, kind of drawing you in.
Yeah.
Or you've heard the buzz and thought, what's the big deal? Why is everyone talking about this? Well, that is what we are diving into today.
Yeah.
We're going to figure it out.
Let's get to the bottom of it.
And we found this really fascinating review by Ann Mendez. She's also known as The Lit Bitch. And she actually hesitated to read these books for a while, even though they were super popular.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because, when something gets so popular, so hyped, it's almost like you're a little resistant. Like, do I really want to jump on this bandwagon?
That's so true. You kind of almost want to resist it. Like, I'm going to be the one person that doesn't read this.
Exactly. But, Anne's experience, her initial hesitation, and then actually diving in, it's actually a really good perspective for our listeners. Especially if you're, unsure about committing to another fantasy series, because this could be a really long series.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
These books can be long.
It can be really daunting to be like, oh, am I going to start this and then never read anything else for the next 6 months?
Exactly. So think of this as your shortcut guide.
Yeah.
You'll get the essence, the core appeal, without having to actually read the whole thing yourself.
Yeah. We'll tell you everything you need to know.
Exactly. So, get ready for a bit of Beauty and the Beast, but with a dash of Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
That political intrigue, but it's geared towards YA, so it's a little bit of a a different blend.
Yeah, different flavor.
Different flavor, exactly.
So how Anne even got to reading this book is actually kind of funny.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So she had them on her shelf, just looming over her
Oh yeah, we've all been there.
in that TBR pile, that to be read pile,
The never-ending TBR pile.
never ending. And her big concern was actually that fantasy series could be so addictive.
Yeah.
Like you get sucked in
Oh, totally.
and then you don't do anything else.
You forget to eat, sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And so she was like, "Ugh, I don't know if I want to commit to that.
Fair enough.
But then fate intervened.
Tell me, what happened?
Or maybe just bad in-flight entertainment choices, who knows? But she ends up on this turbulent flight.
Oh,
It's bumpy. And she's looking through her Audible options, and there's not much there.
the worst.
And guess what's there?
What, a Court of Thorns and Roses?
Horde of Thorns and Roses staring her in the face. So she's like, all right, fine, I guess I'll do this. Expecting to be sucked in.
Of course, yeah.
And guess what?
She got sucked in.
She totally did.
I love that. I love that that's how it happened.
It's sometimes the best discoveries,
Think that happened to you?
they happen to you. When you're trapped on an airplane.
Exactly. And it just proves sometimes you just got to take the leap.
Yeah.
Even if it's a leap into a fairy world.
That's right. And it seems like even though she was hesitant, she really got into it. And she says that this first book was actually both comfortably familiar and also surprisingly engaging.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point.
It's you've got that thing and then a little bit of new stuff.
Exactly. You're not thrown completely into the deep end. There's
Yeah.
something recognizable, something to hold on to.
And she makes this comparison, and I thought this was really clever. She's like, imagine Beauty and the Beast, the classic story.
Sure.
But then you mix it with the political intrigue of Game of Thrones.
Ooh, interesting.
And then you focus it on a young adult protagonist.
So high stakes, but also, that coming of age element.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that was really interesting to me. Beauty and the Beast meets Game of Thrones. Right, I'm listening.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that combination is really smart because you've got the fairy tale, which we all love.
Yeah.
That classic tale of a monster and woman.
Yeah, that draws you in.
But then you add those layers of political backstabbing and the courtly drama, which, let's be honest, we all kind of secretly enjoy that.
Oh, it's so good.
It's juicy. But, it's still centered on a young adult character navigating all of this. So it's got that, that accessibility.
Yes.
That relatability.
Yeah, you can put yourself in the shoes of the character a little bit.
Exactly.
So I want to talk about the main character because she's the center of all this.
Okay, yeah, tell me.
Fair.
Fair.
And the reviewer really liked her from the beginning. And I think part of it was that she's portrayed as strong and capable. She's a huntress providing for her family.
Wow, so she's not a damsel in distress.
Not at all.
She's got her own thing going on.
Yeah, but then also, like, when she gets thrust into this magical fairy world, she's also very relatable.
I think that's so important, right? Because if you have a character that's just, like, super perfect and powerful from the start, it's hard to connect with them.
Yeah, you need to see that human side.
Exactly. And especially for a YA heroine, you know, you want someone who's a little bit flawed, someone who's figuring things out.
So the readers can see themselves in them a little bit.
Exactly. And I think Anne really hits on that, the idea that Fair has this potential for growth, you know? She's not just reacting to events, she's making choices.
She's driving the plot.
Exactly. So for our listeners, if you enjoy characters that like go on a journey of self-discovery and become more powerful, more themselves, Fair seems to tick that box.
Yeah, sounds like it. Okay, now we have to talk about the romance.
Okay, here we go. The romance.
The big part of this book.
It's a big part of a lot of YA, let's be real.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we're here for.
It's what draws people in.
The yearning.
The yearning. So we've got Farron and this very high lord, Tamlin. And Anne actually had a really interesting perspective on this because, you know, she's read a lot of romance.
She's got the experience.
She's seen it all.
Yeah.
And she was saying, like, you know, as a reader, who's maybe a little older, she was picking up on, like, some red flags.
Oh, interesting. Red flags.
In the relationship. And, you know, as someone who's been there and done that with a relationship,
You start to recognize those patterns.
you start to recognize them.
Like, oh, honey, no, don't go down that road. But she also points out, you know, this is first love, right?
Yeah.
That intense, all-consuming.
You're blinded by it.
Blinded by it. And honestly, when you think back to your own experiences or, you know, you see those around you, it's true. That initial, like, infatuation
Really get you.
can really mess with your judgment.
You miss things.
Totally.
So Anne was saying, like, even though she saw those red flags, she still found herself really invested in their romance.
Okay, so it was still compelling enough to keep her reading.
Yeah, like, she was drawn in. She wanted to know what was going to happen.
I can see that. It's like, even if you know something might be a little messy, you're still curious.
You want to see how it plays out?
You want to see the train wreck.
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe just a little bit.
But, you know, she kind of hinted that her opinion of their relationship changes as the series goes on.
Oh, okay. So there's more to come.
Yeah, so maybe those red flags become a little bit more prominent.
Juicy. It's like the first book sets the stage, but then things can change.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so something that comes up a lot with this series is like the explicit content
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
and whether it actually fits with that YA label.
It's definitely been debated.
It's a hot topic
Yeah.
because Anne does point out there is like graphic sex in these books.
Okay, so it's not shying away from it.
It's not shying away. And then there's also a lot of like references to intimacy. So, you know, considering that the audience for YA is like, you know, 16 to early 20s, it sparked a lot of discussion.
Yeah. It's definitely a tricky line to walk
For sure.
because, you know, you want to be honest and realistic, but you also don't want to like alienate or overwhelm younger readers.
Yeah.
It's a balance.
But Anne actually brings up a really interesting point.
Okay, what's that?
She's like, what if by including this more mature content, it actually makes it more realistic
Oh, interesting. Okay.
and relatable?
So, like, it's reflecting the actual experiences of young adults who are, you know, exploring those things themselves.
Exactly. Like they're figuring out their sexuality.
Yeah.
They're figuring out relationships. And she kind of contrasts that with like some YA novels where the romantic encounters are like really vague.
Oh, yeah, like fade to black.
They kissed. The end.
Exactly. So it's almost like, you know, Maas's approach, even though it might be controversial for some, that it could feel more authentic to readers who are in that stage of life.
Yeah, it's less like sugar-coated and more like this is real life.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because like think back to when you were that age, like, you know, you were looking for answers. You were looking for like realistic portrayals of those experiences.
Yeah, that's true.
And sometimes those overly sanitized versions, they don't really do it for you.
No, they don't.
So for our listeners, if you've ever felt like, okay, I want something that feels a little bit more real, this series might be something to check out.
It might hit differently.
It might.
Okay, so moving on from the romance,
Onto the world.
the world building, which obviously is so important for fantasy.
Oh, yeah, that's make or break for me. If the world doesn't pull me in, I'm out.
Same.
I need to feel like I'm transported.
And she said that she really enjoyed the introduction to this world. You know, like the different fairy courts, they each have their own like personality and power.
Oh, cool. So it's not just like one generic fairy world.
No, there's like layers to it.
There's like different factions, different, cultures.
And, you really get that feeling that there's this bigger, more intricate world that you're just getting a glimpse of.
I love that. I love that feeling of like, oh, there's so much more to uncover.
Yeah, that keeps you wanting to read more.
Absolutely. It's like a little tease, like, come on, keep reading and I'll show you all the secrets.
And she also said that she's excited about, like, the other characters, not just Fair and Tamlin.
Oh, so there's potential for like really good supporting characters.
Yeah, like there's this sense that they're going to play a bigger role later on.
I love that because, a good supporting cast can really make or break a series.
Totally.
You want characters that you're invested in, that you want to see more of.
And, no review is complete without some criticism.
Oh, the criticism. That's always the juicy part.
Well, she did point out a couple things that, like, weren't her favorite.
Okay, let's hear it.
One thing she mentioned was that there were some phrases that were, like, overused.
Like repeated a little too much.
Repeated a little too much. Like, apparently in this world, a lot of things get ripped to ribbons.
Ripped to ribbons. Okay.
Yeah, like dresses are ripped to ribbons.
Right.
Bodies.
Oh, wow.
Like someone's mental state.
The mental state is ripped to ribbons.
Ripped to ribbons. So it's like, at first, it's probably like, okay, that's a vivid image.
It paints a picture.
But then it's like, okay, we get it. Things are being ripped apart.
Yeah, it loses its impact after a while.
It loses its impact. And she also mentioned that she felt like the words mate and bond were used a lot.
Okay, so like maybe a little bit heavy-handed with the like destined soulmate trope.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Which, can be a bit much.
So even though she was enjoying the story, those little things kind of got to her after a while.
It can be distracting, right? Like when you're pulled out of the story by something like that.
Yeah, it takes you out of the world a little bit.
But I think it's important to remember that even books that are super popular, they're not going to be perfect for everyone.
Yeah, there's always going to be something.
Always.
So even with those little criticisms, she still gave the book 4 stars.
Okay, so overall positive.
Overall, a good read, and firmly puts it in YA fantasy.
Solidly in that category.
So to sum up everything that Anne said, this book is a really good blend of romance and fantasy. It's got that, Beauty and the Beast vibe, but then it also throws in those like darker political elements from like Game of Thrones. You've got Farrah, who is a great protagonist, really relatable, tons of potential, and the romance, even though it has some of those like maybe not so healthy first love aspects, it's still really engaging.
And you've got the world building, which sounds really intriguing.
Yes, and the explicit content is definitely something to keep in mind, but Anne's perspective is interesting. It might actually make it more relatable for some readers.
And I think, her initial hesitation, the fact that she wasn't sure if she wanted to commit to the series and then ended up really enjoying it, that says a lot.
Yeah, it does. It's like, even if you're not sure, it might surprise you.
Exactly. It's worth taking a chance.
So, for all of you listening, do you think you'll add A Court of Thorns and Ragas to your TBR?
To be read pile. Yeah. Will it make the cut?
Will it make the cut?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe, check out the audiobook. Who knows? Just something to think about. And that's our deep dive from Read It or Skip It. We'll see you next time.
Farewell from Read It or Skip It.